So welcome, Christine. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi,
Hope you're
Julie.
well today. Hi.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for, agreeing to do this interview. And I really look forward to hearing your story. Of course, I know most of it, but always interesting things come out in these interviews. I hear experiences that we hadn't necessarily chatted about before, and every person has such a unique experience. So I'm really excited to get into it with you today, and I'll let you start by introducing yourself.
Great. Thanks. I'm Christine Grasso. I live in northern New Jersey, not too far from New York City in the States. I'm 44. I have a 10-year-old son. I have a mostly computer job working in corporate wellness for Mars Incorporated. Health and wellness has been a passion of mine for the last 15, 20 years. I also volunteer for my son's Cub Scout den as a leader. I 15 years ago, I was certified through Institute for Integrative Nutrition as a health coach. So I had an active coaching practice for a while and also taught yoga for a while and before I moved to my corporate job.
Thank you. Amazing. Yes, I remember when we first got introduced, seeing that you had been a health coach, and I'm thinking, are you? I was asking the questions like, what's your goal here? Like, is it? But I knew that your focus had been actually, you had done great things for yourself, and your focus had been on gut health, and
yes.
You had made some great advancements through your own health, and you'd helped others. And then you were still in the wellness industry. And I always love speaking with people who are also, working in that field or have experience there, or even just a passion, because it's just a different level of conversation, and you can get into the more in depth on it. And so it's been fun. It's been fun working with you for that reason
I
as
agree.
well. So, maybe now you can let us all know what was going on for you when we first met. To what degree were you experiencing migraine episodes? How are they affecting your life? And generally in health too. Anything you want to share with us about how things were going for you?
Sure. So I've had headaches for the past 10 or 15 years. For a long time, I think we're misdiagnosed sometimes as sinus infections with having facial pain. But then also probably about 10 years ago, started with the menstrual migraines, which I'm sure many women can relate to. Unfortunately, over the past year and 3 months or so, the migraines had gotten a lot more chronic, a lot more severe. Like, what is happening to me? I had gotten by last spring 2022, I'd gotten to probably 20 migraine days per month. The month of August last year was just miserable. I pretty much had a migraine the whole month. So looking at then after that, maybe 4 times a week or so, I was on a lot of different medications, NSAIDs like Aleve, Nurtec, which is a migraine attack medication, probably 20 a month. And I could not keep enough in the house. The Imitrex that so many people are on used to work and then kind of stopped working. Then had to even take heavier duty stuff to try to break episodes that wouldn't break, like Depakote, which is a anticonvulsant or a drug for epilepsy. I tried a couple of things as preventive, an antidepressant called amitriptyline, Botox. My pain is here like a dagger stabbing me in the top of the head, and then a lot of facial pain. But what kind of ratcheted everything up a notch last year was this, the nausea being, out of control, as well as the dizziness. That really just makes you completely unable to function. And then the fatigue, like the not being able to think clearly at all, that many people complain of when they have a migraine. And it was all of a sudden I was super sensitive to the weather, starting probably last spring, or that's what it felt like to me. As I started to notice the patterns, like an old lady, oh, it must rain, it's gonna rain tomorrow, I'm in pain. Or storm systems and things like that, pressure changes.
My body's telling me.
Yeah. Yeah, I also have a history with seasonal allergies, and long-term antihistamine use is probably not the best for me. And then on and off with digestive issues, as you mentioned, like 15 years ago, I had a lot of acid reflux, IBS. I healed myself. I helped other people heal themselves. Um, I think probably now I'm realizing still have more of that gut healing to do. And then also I've struggled with anxiety, on and off depression, issues sleeping that I'm sure affect everything else as well.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. There was a lot going on for you. I remember the
Yes.
severity too of what you're describing. It's awful, that's so hard to deal with so many days out of the month.
Yeah.
And going back to what you're saying about, having dealt with digestive and gut issues. And, we talk a lot about how that is one of the underlying things that are usually affecting someone with migraine, needs to be addressed, needs to at least be observed and evaluated, and then addressed if it's happening. And for you, it may have been that you really only partially addressed it. It may have been that you did address what was going on, but things happened again, right, over time,
Yeah.
especially even with medication use, with the allergy medication use, with anything. So also a lot has changed. So this is nothing on you as a health coach or having gone through that program and knowing so much. There's still a lot of advancements that have been made and new information that's come out in the last 10 years, especially around gut health and around migraine. So it's I commend you for reaching out to get help. And I always say, like, even health coaches need their own health coach.
Absolutely.
Even,
Yeah.
People in the wellness field need their own team around them to help them, play house or like Dr. House, play that investigatory, do that investigation work and play detective, because it's really hard to do on yourself. And then when you're not feeling well, especially, right? So with all of this and how you were feeling, like, how was this impacting you at work and in your family life, and with all of the responsibilities and commitments you had made, including with like your son's Scouts or Cubs program?
Yeah. Obviously not good. It impacted my work and personal life a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I, very quickly ran out of sick days last year. So I feel very grateful that my work has something called an intermittent disability leave. So I had to take disability leave, and like last summer, it was a lot of days. It was like more than half the month probably that I missed, but then ongoing, I was missing a couple days a month. I have a full-time demanding job, so that was very difficult. Then constant anxiety about like, how can I catch up? How can I get ahead so that I don't fall behind on my deadlines? And then, just then the anxiety of social time, like not being able to go do something, especially if it's outside in the summer and it's humid or stormy, but having to cancel plans with friends and family, then the guilt of like, well, I'm not going to come to this, and then like being guilted to come, for something for family, when I really just like cannot be around people at that point. So yeah, it was, not good, to the point where it had started to get to like, all right, what else are we going to do at work to have a backup plan for my work? And then you just feel isolated. Like, it's just when you're in that much pain so frequently, and you don't really want to talk to anybody when you're in that much pain,
Mm-hmm.
you just feel like, God, I'm the only one going through this, which is obviously not the case, but it affects your mental health for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. And I know in the line of work you're in, again, in this, the role that you have, it is very demanding, even for somebody who's feeling well. It can feel
Right.
like you're playing catch up all the time, or you're trying to keep on top of things. So yes, I trying for, if you're not feeling well, 15, 20 days, and to the point of being in such severe pain, and maybe running out of medication that's able to help a little bit to cut the edge,
Yeah.
right?
The other thing I wanted to add too is, I think for a very long time, going back to probably, 10, 15 years ago, I was just band-aid, like either ignoring the pain or misdiagnosis of sinus infection, going on antibiotics, just overusing Aleve. So there was this, like, I think lack of then focusing on what I needed to focus on to figure it out and heal it.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something over the years. And then even once I had them more frequently in the last year and a half, I wasn't always the best at saying like, okay, it's time to shut it down and lay down or rest or relax or, do what I need to do to take care of myself. So I think that is definitely difficult being a type A overachiever, in personal and work. And I had to cancel cups out stuff because of the migraines or, have other people take over. So that's a group that I was leading for kids, for the community, so that was challenging too, to balance that for sure. Made me want to give up my volunteer opportunity, even though it gives me a sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, it's hard once that you reach that point where you're actually having to say no to things that you really wanted to attend and push through, but even you're at the point where you can't push through anymore. It's too painful now, it's too severe, it's too long, or say no, like give up things you've already committed to and feel like now they're in a tough spot because they need to find someone different. But it is a slippery slope to that point where you're probably starting out with a few extra migraine days than usual throughout the month, or they're getting a little worse, but the medication, if it had worked to that point, to kind of keep you operational, you do it. And it's just that keeping on top of life that's hard. So it makes sense that people turn to Band-Aid solutions or like those temporary partial solutions, because you just need to get life done. And especially when a lot of times women are feeling like they need to give to others, and that's the top priority, and then address their own needs is kind of like secondary. So you end up just saying, if it's working, I'm going to keep doing it. But the problem with that is it can keep going and going. And there is a point where you will run out of the medications. They will start to, if they haven't already been contributing to the issue of like imbalance, creating the migraine problem, then you may end up in that place where it's like you're reliant on them, but they're feeding into the issue. And it's, how do you get out of that when you're not feeling well, right? It's such a tough place to be in. And then that, like you said, can lead to the mental health problems, like the feelings of like despair and like, just feeling stuck and hopeless. How do you start to feel better without, having knowing what to do and, being assured it'll help? Because if you're already missing so many days from work, it's the idea of missing more to try to take care of yourself, or giving up more responsibility to take time to take care of yourself, because there's limited time left at the end of the day after that. So and you were working in wellness, so you are actually still in the midst of everything. It's a little ironic, like you're also helping other people live healthier lives and figure out how to create their best life, or how to improve their health, and maybe you can talk a little bit on this, exactly how you're going about it, but you're spreading good messages of good health and you are helping people. So people that are not feeling well and aren't in a good space health-wise, they're still capable of helping other people with their own health, because you still know a lot. You're like, putting the message out, and you're helping, you're changing lives. But then it's like, okay, now it's time for me, right? Like now it's my turn to now address my own stuff. And that's what you fortunately decided you needed to do at that point, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I saw a lot of different types of practitioners that were not helping. And you mentioned recently when you have a chronic condition like migraine, you get into this like information overload and like the rabbit hole of like Googling solutions and like maybe ice baths will work, like all kinds of crazy stuff. You land on blogs, you land on, vetted sources like American Migraine Foundation. And this doctor tells you to try this. Like my regular doctor tried to do this special kind of chiropractor to adjust this atlas bone called the atlas orthogonal. I do think he helped my spine, but it didn't fix the migraine. And that was like a whole boatload of money. The neurologist is just a Band-Aid. Literally all she would talk to me about was meds. Initially there was maybe a little bit on, vitamins or like minerals, but it was really going through this so chronically and so badly. I'm like, really? That's all you're going to talk to me about? Like headache specialists too, even, did not bring up food. I was like, really? So then I started even down the path too of like, is it emotional? Do I need to, try this app and, doing yoga for migraine, doing different kinds of massage, like breath work. I did a little bit of tinkering with diet, with my knowledge. It
Mhm.
didn't really get me anywhere. And all of you, all of you people listening with migraine can understand, I bought the Cephaly. I, tried oxygen therapy. So the doctor said something about it. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped the sugar. I stopped the gluten. Um, and it's just frustrating when you do so many healthy things for yourself and you think you know how to take care of yourself. Like I exercise almost every day. I did a lot of work to find the exercise that is right for me since I've become a mom, that I can fit into my schedule and make it work. And I feel good when I do it. So that was really frustrating, that I went down the rabbit hole of, is it the computer? Do I need like blue light glasses? Do I have to put the blue light blocker on my, so many rabbit holes.
It's like you were biohacking. You were trying to do all the biohacking stuff, but without addressing some of the foundations that you just weren't aware were playing a part for you. Like there were puzzle pieces missing, pretty important ones. And it's like, you're trying to build on top of something that was too, quicksandy.
Yeah.
So, and it's possible that some of those things you were doing were contributing, and if you're still doing some of them, like are still contributing to the overall picture of things, right? But there was still a major piece missing for you. There are some major pieces missing for you. And I remember when we first met you, you were telling me like how clean you ate, and you knew that you were sensitive to, let's say, certain
Gluten.
types of foods and things, and you're just like, don't ask me to make, I'm not gonna feel too comfortable straying too far from how I'm eating, because this is working for me. and again, I'm like, is it though?
It's not,
But
it wasn't working.
from the respect of like eating whole foods, yes, like you were doing a fantastic job of that, right? Like trying to focus on whole foods, which is one of the foundations, and doing away with additives and processed things. And so there, yes, you were doing excellent. However, if there are certain imbalances playing a part, there are sometimes healthful foods that are going to be contributing to the problem that we may need to look at for
Right.
restricted period of time, eliminating. And that's what ended up having to happen for you. And you were very open to it by that point because of the way we could ease into it, and the answers you got to determine that, yes, in fact, I do need to do this. And you at that point though knew there was like a time limit on any restrictions you were being asked to make, and that there was a plan for it. So it was helpful in that way to understand the why and the how, and then you're more willing to do it. But is it necessary or not? That's what people need to be sure of before they launch into anything that's restrictive around food. So that's why generally, the program's not about restricting, it's about bringing in more. But where it's needed, we restrict. And you were very open and willing once you knew why and what you were doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you ultimately see that you're getting results, it keeps you going.
Exactly. So you talked a lot now about what you've tried, and it's true, not for lack of trying again, like working on food, working with doctors. You weren't trying to just figure it out on your own. It's true. You were like, I don't know everything. I'm going to be looking for the specialists and getting them to help me. But they all have their limitations on what type of advice they can provide. They have their area of specialty. And what I do still think is missing from the approach to wellness in general, just from a, institution standpoint, because people turn to conventional medicine because that's what it's accepted. It's what insurance companies cover. That's what governments cover. Like in Canada, that's what's covered, not the alternative stuff. So that's why I think a lot of people perceive the alternative stuff as like secondary, as not as good as like, if this doesn't work, then I will do that. But I so wish that people would take the opposite approach. And you were doing that to a certain extent. You were doing both. You had to do both. You needed to manage the pain. You needed to manage the symptoms and get answers. And, neurologist is a specialist in the nervous system, the brain. Like that makes sense, right? To at least also do process of elimination of, it's not going to be these problems. Okay, once we establish it must be an imbalance of some kind in the body. This is where I feel like the whole body's not taken. We're still got a long ways to go for more wellness people practicing wellness in different coming from different modes of expertise. It's like seeing the body as a whole, seeing as it is interconnected, all of the different systems talk to each other, work together, affect one another, and what we're doing, how we're living, what we're consuming, that all affects every single cell, which affects every tissue in the body and every organ and every system. And then the systems affecting one another. So it's like, okay, how do we evaluate that if we've got a specialist just in this organ, a specialist in this body part, a specialist in this body part? And unfortunately, with the conventional side of things, it's like medications are kind of the go-to. That's what they know, that's what they're experts in. And you could see alternative practitioners, but unless I think what was helpful too was having your team around you, and then having like the regularity of contact to like evaluate how you're feeling week by week after that. And we pretty quickly clued into what was going on for you, and were able to start addressing it, right?
Yeah.
And how quickly did you feel difference once we were there and we were like, okay, we need to work on this. How quickly did results start coming for you, and how did you first experience the changes?
Well, it was, so I think around the first month or 3 or 4 weeks, with some of the changes, it started to help my sleep and anxiety level too, I think, with going off some medications. And then the first time, I can remember the first time there was a thunderstorm and I didn't have a migraine. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. There's lightning. I don't feel it in my head, and like came home and I was out and came home and had my ginger tea and was like, oh, I'm okay. Good.
Big relief.
Yeah. So I think it was about 8 or 10 weeks. I started switching to taking some over-the-counter medications instead of always going to my prescription. So, I mean, that's a huge deal because I, used to roll my eyes at people that would try to tell me to try an OTC. I'm like, you think I haven't tried that already? And then having that first time that I went a week without a migraine was like, oh, like in a year was amazing. And looking at managing stress better, and then slowly starting to have the episodes be less severe, like not having the dizziness with them or not lasting as long. So I guess it was recently, like within the past month or two. So I don't know how long that was. Julie started in April. So maybe 3-4 months.
Yeah, 12 weeks in or so.
Yeah, 3-4 months in. This prescription that I've been so anxious about getting on time every month because I needed those 16 pills. I like forgot to refill it and was like, oh, I don't have to like freak out about my like literally it was causing me so much stress to refill prescriptions. Was I going to get it in time? Did I have a big day? The day it was going to be late? Like, was I going to have to miss an important meeting or this thing with my family or whatever? So I think a lot of people can probably relate to that who've been relying on meds. I had menstrual migraines. I was on the pill to control them. Obviously it wasn't working because I was still having the migraines and even more than just once a month. So I went off the pill, and then like it took a little bit, but by 3 months in, it was only like a mild menstrual migraine for a much shorter period of time. I mean, I went from like a 50-hour one to a 30-hour one to like maybe a few hours, and I was upright and it wasn't as bad. It's a huge deal because this is how it started. I feel like was the menstrual migraine. 10, 15 years ago. I'm not even sure. And then just period improving, not being so horrible.
And you started on the pill back then, right? Like that was about when you started on the pill, was it?
I've been on a couple of different ones. I had started the continuous like 3-4 years ago.
But you had been on something ever since, and that's what a lot of people will
off and on, but I was on for many years of my adult life. Yes.
And that's what we often will again, we think getting at the root is if there's a hormonal imbalance, there must be hormonal if we're having bad periods or if we're having migraines with our periods. And it's like, yes, likely there's an imbalance. or something's going on. However, if our threshold is low, our period is a stress on the body in itself and can throw us over that threshold. So there might not be, but let's say there are hormonal imbalances and we get that confirmed, or we're fairly certain, people will turn, like, that's the recommendation that we'll get from the doctors though, is go on the pill. This will solve it. But without any question for why is there the imbalance? So it's not a root cause, like the hormonal imbalance, and therefore then the migraine episodes, bad migraine episodes around them, is not one of the root causes necessarily. Like that, there's a root, there's something underneath that, which is the actual root, down. So in your case, like, it could have, even over time, that could have been one of the contributive factors to making things worse instead of better. So at first, what it can do is help people, make them feel better, less migraine, maybe less severe. But over so many years of taking something, it can just create more of an imbalance, or add something else into the body that creates a different type of imbalance that is something else that can affect migraine episodes.
Yeah.
So who knows, right? But you did make the decision at that point, like, I'm gonna stop, like, doing this, right? And it was
like, clearly it's not doing what I went on it for. Yeah. So it's time I was so afraid for so long to make changes with the meds. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, but because I wasn't feeling well. It's not like they were doing their job.
No, but you're worried about feeling worse. That's what that's what people say. It makes sense. I'm worried this could get worse if I stop this. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, the amitriptyline, the antidepressant, low dose, I was so afraid to go off of that. Mm-hmm. But now that I understand better my root causes, like, it was probably making me worse. Mm-hmm. So it just blew my mind when I found that out. I was like, this thing that the neurologist who I'm seeing for migraines gave me, probably made it worse over that year. And the dizzy, made the dizziness worse and all of that. So I chose, with the doctor's support and guidance, to stop that. Yeah. I had tried Botox and I don't really feel like it worked. And I think just not having, like, so much rescue medication all the time, mm-hmm. which, is hard, but I think, with your guidance and then hearing the other people in the group talk about the changes they were making, that's just inspiring, to say, like, oh, well, she was really suffering and is working for her. Mm-hmm. You just don't feel so alone. I think that's, one of the big things that was helpful. But I just wanted to comment too of what you were just talking about. Like, I think that's the benefit of working with you, is the uncovering the layers that, like, even going to a neurologist who is supposed to specialize in wellness, he was just giving me the same supplements he gave everybody else with migraine. And, yes, these high quality, whatever, turmeric, the magnesium, fine. But, like, it was not personalized. Right, it was not looking at, like, what's the root cause? What's going on here? So you were the first one to say that to me. And I was like, oh, that's so refreshing. Like, yes, why is this happening? I don't know.
And actually, yeah, going back to why you did decide to, because you had been working with so many different practitioners seeking help, at the point where you came across the group or this method, like, what was that kind of inspiring factor for you? Was it that I mentioned root causes, or that I mentioned like the detective work or digging into things?
Well, when I talked to you, yes, it was the detective work. But when so you had your post that said something like, the ad on Facebook that was, don't you wish you could just turn the off switch on your migraines, or something like that? I literally had uttered the exact same words to my husband the day before. And I was like, she understands me.
It's in my head.
Yeah, I know. Was she listening on my phone?
These days, anything is possible. I promise you I wasn't, though.
I know. So, but that was what made me click the ad and say, okay, I need to understand this. And I really just did not understand this concept of this threshold that multiple factors can go into the migraine, and was just trying to explain it to everybody, like, it's the weather, I have no control. Yeah. So to realize that I did have some control was a pretty significant turning point.
Yeah. And good for you. Like, I mean, it's it can be hard for people to admit that too, that they do have some control, because the migraine controls your life so much, and you do
Yeah.
feel guilty about things, which I don't think anybody should, feel guilty about missing things or not being there or having to ask for help. But that it's a reality that people do feel guilty. And it's
Yeah.
too bad because people fall into that way of thinking of, it's outside of my control, and that takes a little bit of weight off the shoulders of like, this is just the way it is, and people will
Yeah.
start to take it on to as an identity, bit of identity, and like they're comfortable. And again, with that whole brain, with our brain, being geared for that, like to keep us stuck and to resist change, to keep us safe because we're alive with the way things are. So why would we make any changes? Because that's all the
Yeah.
brain cares about, is keeping us alive. But we're not well and alive, in this state. We're not like thriving. We're not, able to enjoy things. So yes, for you to recognize that there may be some way that you can make changes that will result in your desired outcome. Like it's great. I'm happy that you saw that, and that you were open to it, and then that you investigated a little further. And then we had a conversation, and I guess the rest is history, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you've already mentioned kind of all the medicines you're taking, and what you come off of. And yes, like some of them have right on their label, like side effects may include, and things like antidepressants or SSRI, like they can cause more headaches, they can cause dizziness, they can cause but doctors won't always go over all of those with their patients. They won't always raise that potential. Like there are definitely medications used off label for this, but they can create worse situations. But without knowing that's a possibility, we just kind of go with it, right?
Yeah.
And just hope that it's doing something, or that eventually to do something. And that's the tricky part too, is sometimes things can take a while to make a difference. And so we kind of keep giving it a shot, and then eventually like, no, something has to give here. So yeah, brave. Anyone who's making these changes and making those decisions, it's very brave. So much easier though if you're already feeling a bit better, because then you're like more confident in making that decision to try.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like that's probably where you were at with some of those meds that you were trying to come off of. So in the end now, how are you doing with your sort of we're about 19 weeks since starting, or 20 weeks in. I don't remember anymore either.
Something like that. I think it was March or so.
Yeah. Yeah. But given all of those different meds, and then the amounts that you were taking of certain acute meds, like where are you at right now with, how many episodes you might experience in a month or in a week, and, any other symptoms that you had been getting alongside those migraines? Have those shifted for you? What is it like now?
Yeah. So before I said, 15, 20 a month. For the most part, I think I'm tracking at around like one a week that I would consider a migraine. And I think talking with you and the others in the group helped me start to differentiate between like a migraine and a headache. And like, when do I really need to take the prescription? Because I do think I was getting into that rebound effect where I was taking the prescription too much, and it was so hard to get off that train. It's just constant. You get so afraid of how bad it's going to be that you just want to take the pill. So it varies, but I would say probably about like one, maybe two a week, and then sometimes going like long stretches, feeling great. I think that. Oh, and then so the dizziness is a lot. Less. And then I think when I do go to reach for a pill, I'm like, oh, like I haven't been stressing about this so much. Like I kind of get that realization that like I'm not so attached to this bottle anymore, this pill bottle, and I'm not so worried about like having to like plans, like I have a big meeting for work, or I have to something special for a family, or my own birthday or my son's birthday or any of that. Like I could tell you, last year my son's birthday, I was miserable the entire weekend. It was like a stormy summer weekend. I had a migraine the whole weekend, and this year I did not. So that was great. Like I was feeling good, and that made me really happy. So I think for me, like working with you and having the support of the group and hearing from others in the program who I think it's really unique and positive, that the way you have it structured, that there might be people that started with you before, somebody new starting with you, on the group coaching calls, because I think it's just inspiring to hear from other people. Like, you've come a long way in your journey and you're very open about that, but you're kind of like at a place where you're a lot better. So it's helpful to also hear from people who are kind of like in the thick of getting better, and hear the progress that they've made and how excited they are about the progress that they made. Or, I went to see this type of practitioner, and that inspired me to go see, a naturopathic doctor. I think for me, it was like taking back that control. It was like, oh, like I can influence this. So having like feeling empowered, and then just so many years of putting other things first and not me. So just being like super intentional about like how I spend my time, my lifestyle choices, how I prioritize that. If I need to meet with you, or I need to, make this meal, or I need to go meet with this doctor, like that's my priority, as opposed to everything else in my life being my priority. So it's really just, and then like that reduced anxiety too, like I was saying, like not so much anxiety about like missing like half of what was going on in my life, basically, because it was half my days. So that is like taking my health back into my own hands, which is invaluable.
Yeah. Yes. And like, I like to say, you're putting yourself at the top of that chain, like prioritizing you. And it has to be maybe in a more intense, to a more intense degree or severe sort of way for a bit. But this is so that you can start prioritizing other people and other things again, not to completely drop yourself off or make yourself a lower priority in the future. But it's like, there might have to be in this phase, more intense focus, yes, on yourself.
I agree. Yeah.
And then, but the goal is to get back to being able to be there for others. You can't be there for others very well if you're not feeling well, right? As much as we think we are doing it, it's like people can sense when you're not feeling great, and then they feel a little bad about, you helping them with something if you're not feeling great. And you just can't put the same energy into things and the same effort, even if you're there, you're not really there as well. So it's like,
Yeah.
seeing it
That's
as like
another.
a short term, like bit of pain for long-term gain, like a little bit of more energy and effort needs to be redirected. You might piss some people off, or you might, let some people down, but in a different way, so that in the future you can be there for them more. It's like this way of thinking. Sometimes people need that mind frame reset, so that they don't feel guilty about looking after themselves, about putting more time, attention, money, whatever it might be, on themselves for at least a period more intensely. And then you can ease off a bit, still looking after yourself though, but you've now rediscovered how to maintain, like you're more in maintenance mode at a certain point. Like there's the acute sort of like, intense phase, and then there's
Yes.
more maintenance mode, and you learn a lot and things feel easier. The things that felt hard at first
Yes,
can
for
feel
sure.
easier, and all of that. So
Yeah. It's once you establish those habits, it's not, of course, making a change can feel hard at first, or whether it's like learning new ingredients or new recipes. But like once you kind of get more into a rhythm, it's like, oh, this thing that took me an hour to make now takes me a half an hour to make. Like, how to do it, how to, get into that rhythm and be prepared. Which, you've guided us through well to get that started early on, even when you're still in a lot of pain in your program, if people are at a similar place where I was, but to get that going, so that, like you said, like sometimes the natural methods may not always work right away, especially like I probably was in rebounds. But like now I'm like, oh, okay, the ginger's working, so getting that habit like under your belt, that
yes.
doing it frequently, so that it's just ready to go when you need it. And like you said, with the, it is a more intense focus for a while in yourself, but I think it also has required me to just be better about setting boundaries with everything, whether it's work or personal life stuff.
Yeah. And hopefully not, but I mean, people generally don't mind in the end. Like we always build it up in our heads to think there's going to be an outcry and people are going to be mad, and their lives are going to be disrupted, and they're going to think poorly of us. And it's not, it's usually the opposite that's true. They they like that there's a smile on our face more often, and that we're like more easygoing, or, better mood, and we're available and, participating. So yeah, there's like give and take always, but
Yeah.
it's very much so worth it, right? So yeah, I guess now what I want to ask is if, there was, you talked a little bit about what aspects of the program you appreciated, like the group setting, the sharing, and the support through all of it. Is there anything else you wanted to add in about like what aspects of the program were you found to be kind of the difference maker for you compared with the other types of ways of working with practitioners or things that you had tried?
Yeah, I think, Julie, the ongoing support that you provide is very different than what you're going to get from most doctors. I mean, even going to the naturopath has been really helpful. But you don't get that deeper level. I don't get that deeper level of support from him in more of an ongoing between appointment context. I know you're there to answer the questions, but I think having the group setting, I think, is a great way to do this, and it really was like the emotional support. I think that was the most helpful. There are other aspects too, but just hearing from other people that are going through this, and then you feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. Because people that don't have migraine don't understand. So just being around people who understand is helpful. And that I felt heard, I felt seen with like what living with migraine is like, which is horrific. So, and then I think, I mentioned the personalization with you, like I was a health coach, like you think you're eating healthy, but you're not necessarily looking at your diet in this personalized kind of way, like what you're dealing with, either looking at if you have deficiencies in anything with blood work, or just knowing that no one way of eating is right for everyone, even within the context of the group. And that motivation to maybe like rely less on medication, again, was hard to do. But I think just hearing other people have success with it, and making progress, and then chatting with you through root causes and imbalances and things like that, just kind of gave me more confidence to really, I mean, it really is amazing how much less medication I take now. And I'm like, oh, I don't have to go to the pharmacy all the time. And, I was it felt like a lot. Now I know better how to handle the migraines. It's not 2 to 4 days. If I do have them, what else? The support in the group environment, like I said, I just think is just invaluable. To be honest, I wasn't sure that I was going to like it that way, knowing I needed some personalization. But just to have, like, again, like that feeling that you're not going through it alone, I think was awesome. I mean, I also just, as an aside, I think the way you've set up like the website and the modules, and like you're listening and you're reading to learn, I think that works really well, to kind of do that on your own. And then if you have questions, you're addressing it with the group, and like you're learning as you're coaching somebody else. I'm also learning from you then too, even if I didn't bring up that question that day. It probably is a question I had anyway. So, and just the accessibility.
Yeah, and even like sharing experiences of trying different products. I mean, sometimes like we're still turning to like packaged things. Like we can't eat completely like they're whole foods, but there's some processed things or some packaged things, I should call them, that
Right.
there's better versions than others out there, those things with just a few ingredients, but there still might be like that blend or that thing that people appreciate more. They're sharing that. But yeah, the experience, and the groups are small. They're kept small on purpose. They're kept small intentionally to kind of give that the group like community aspect, but also the personalization is there's still potential for it to be highly personalized so that everyone gets the time they need,
Yeah, definitely.
through things.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like you're in this, like you get to know the others because it is more like of an intimate group setting. It's
Yes.
not there are massive groups, they're small groups. So well, and it's I always appreciate when people are willing to share, to like give their own thoughts around things if they feel like they can relate, or this is what I love seeing, because I can see how everyone is benefiting. So yeah, it's been great having you in the group, because you are so, you share, the posts, you share some dishes you've made that you enjoyed. So then it can inspire others to, maybe try the same recipe, or to experiment with, their own meals in their family. So it's been awesome having you in there too. I appreciate
Yeah.
you as well.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, I
Um,
personally.
is there anything that you wanted to, tell people, I guess, if you were standing in front of somebody who was dealing with the 20 days of migraines in a month, or, feeling like they're on that path to just, things are getting better, they're kind of continuing to only kind of get worse, all they're finding is advice around medication, supplements, things that seem just very non-personalized and, protocol, but like maybe not for them. It's just not working well. It's not working out. But they're seeing this idea of the root causes. They're seeing this idea of like getting into a longer term program that they can really commit to and start working into. What would you say to someone who's hesitant, to someone who's like wondering if it might be for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell them to do it. I won't regret it. If you've ever felt like you're doing this alone, or like people don't understand me or understand what I'm going through, or why I need to, not be with my family, or why I need to take time off work. It's a way to get out of that constant pain cycle and feel supported by others who actually understand what you're going through. Julie, you're so knowledgeable about nutrition and holistic health. Yeah, yes, I have certification, but much deeper knowledge. And I feel like your approach is really individualized. You're paying attention. We're sharing with you how it's going with the tracking. And it's not like you're just lost in a group. Like you said, it's a very small group. So I think, maybe one of my other hesitations, or somebody out there, their other hesitation is like, if you have migraine, you probably tried a lot of things, So if you're tired of trying things, like, this is different. This is not just like slapping on a Band-Aid approach. And it's getting at that root cause of like, what's going on for you. The fact that I know that now is huge. And I just so amazed with how many doctors do not try to even get there. And if you think about, like, you're making an investment in your long-term health, okay, you could spend your money on your doctor's visits, your medications, the supplements the doctors want you to take. Having to miss work costs you money. So think about you're switching where you're putting that money. You're making that long-term investment in your health. So I'm gonna try not to cry, but I'm gonna say I'm just so grateful, and that how you found me, that I clicked the ad, and I have my life back. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Christine. I'm gonna give you a virtual hug
across the border.
Well, thank you for being so open with us today, for sharing that. I am happy that you're on that path to better things, feeling better, all of that. I'm so happy that my ad, that Facebook algorithm did its way to show my ad to you. Yeah. Because this is what it's all about. It's like helping people that need that have that gap in their wellness journey, that they need exactly this. Like, they need the somebody to walk them through, to help them figure it out, to help them take those steps to the point where they're feeling like they see that light at the end of the tunnel. They see that the potential for not having to suffer anymore, to not have to just be slapping the Band-Aids on and making with a hope and a wish that we'll get through the day. Like, this is what it's about. So I feel your emotion. I feel and I understand, because when you're in like the depths of that, when you are in such severe pain and you're missing out, and it's affecting your life so severely, when you start to be able to let go of that, when that starts to go away, man, it's like the best feeling, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
It's like, thank God, thank goodness, because that is not what life should be about. Like, life should be light. It should be about feeling hope for the future and like looking forward to things, not dreading whether we'll be able to go or not.
Yeah.
So hearing week to week, the progress you've been making, and like at first celebrating the mini things, like, it wasn't as severe this time, or,
Yeah.
it only lasted this long, or I didn't have to take the medication. Like, this actually averted the full on attack. Like, we celebrate all those things every time it happens for people, because keeps the motivation going to keep going, and then to get the
Yeah.
results like you've had. So I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. And I mean, you're not going to get that kind of ongoing support and celebrating like, oh, I slept an hour more last night
Mhm.
from a doctor or traditional paths. Like it just, I am such a strong believer in coaching because of that, because it is that ongoing accountability. And if you feel like it's hard to make XYZ change to your lifestyle to reduce your stress or to improve your diet, having that celebrating the small success, like helps you continue to do that. Like you said, the
Yeah.
motivation helps you continue to put the effort in. But like it's worth it. And like the things that you learn here, you're gonna take with you for your whole life. It's again not like a quick fix. Like, I don't know, does Botox really work for people for many, many years that have migraine forever? No. Like I've heard stories where it works for a while and then it stops, and that's the big thing you hear everybody talk about. So, but this is like your long-term health, like, how long you're gonna live. Like it's invaluable. So
Oh,
again, I'm grateful and I appreciate you.
well, thank you so much, Christine. And I appreciate you too. It's been really, like I say, valuable having you in the group. I mean, it's been amazing seeing you improve. And I'm always so thankful when people are putting those efforts and getting the results. Like, that means everything to me too. And it's what keeps me going and keeps me like working so hard, as much as I can for everybody else, doing my part. Um, and helping you work through it, because it makes a difference. And I know you've made a difference in other group members' lives too, just the way that you've been so engaging and active in the community.
Oh,
So
I hope
I
so.
thank
Good.
you for
Yeah.
that.
And I've told
Yeah.
other people to join your groups, to your Facebook group too.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. And for anybody listening, yes, if you have like friends, family that experience, migraine, that have migraine and experience episodes, and, even if they're not severe or chronic, or, they don't get, just invite them to join the group. You can click like the invite button on the top right, I think it is, and you can just let them know through Facebook that we're here. And I do share things in this group, even if you don't move on to become, you never know what little tidbit will give you that sort of aha revelation
Yeah.
about the situation and help you start at least taking steps to improve things, because it's all the mini steps that lead to the big results. But sometimes we're just not aware of what's important for us in our personal situation to take those steps. And so working as a partnership is very important, and you've done a great
Yeah,
job with that,
for
Christine.
sure.
And like, again, I really appreciate you sharing everything today. Is there anything that you wanted to add in, anything that you want to share in addition to what we've gone through? I know we're coming up to 1 hour, so I thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, sure. I think just this sense of community, if I've been interested in healthy living, healthy eating for a long time, but maybe my current circle of friends are not as interested. So
Mm.
just having that sense of community with other people who have similar values or learning new things has been really helpful. So that's good. Thanks.
Amazing. Yeah, I know you embraced it from the start. You loved it and embraced it because of, and I knew that, but again, it's a little different than working with wellness people already working in the wellness field, or experienced or have passion for it. It's like, it's fun. So, okay, well, thank you for sharing everything with us today,
Yeah, sure.
Christine. And I know you and I will be talking very soon. Tonight's call, actually, I may see you. So, we'll be in touch, and
Okay.
take care, continue the good work. And we'll get that down even further, that number.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye.